Have you ever felt like a fraud despite your accomplishments? This is a question that many of us have asked ourselves at some point or another. It's a feeling that can creep up on us when we least expect it, casting a shadow of doubt over our achievements and undermining our confidence. It's a phenomenon known as imposter syndrome, and it's more common than you might think. Imposter syndrome is a psychological pattern where individuals doubt their accomplishments and constantly fear being exposed as a fraud. It's a relentless inner voice that tells us that we're not good enough, that we're just pretending, and that sooner or later, everyone will find out. It's a silent intruder that sneaks into our minds and sows seeds of self-doubt and fear. Despite its prevalence, imposter syndrome often goes unnoticed or misunderstood. It's easy to brush off these feelings as mere modesty or humility. But in reality, they're much more than that. They're an invisible barrier that prevents us from fully acknowledging and appreciating our own capabilities and achievements. Imagine a successful entrepreneur who has built a thriving business from scratch. To the outside world, they're a symbol of success and determination. But deep down, they feel like they've merely been lucky, and that they're a fraud who's just been good at fooling everyone. Or consider a top student who consistently gets high grades. Despite their academic achievements, they're convinced that they've only managed to get by through sheer luck or deception, and that they're not truly smart or capable. These are just a few examples of how imposter syndrome can manifest itself. It doesn't discriminate, affecting people of all backgrounds, professions, and walks of life. It's a silent battle that many of us face, often without even realizing it. But what impact does it have on our mental health? Well, that's a question that we'll delve into in the next segment. Imposter syndrome is a silent battle many of us face, but what impact does it have on our mental health? Imposter syndrome doesn't just affect your self-esteem, it can take a toll on your mental health. Imposter syndrome is like a wolf in sheep's clothing. It masquerades as humility, perfectionism, or high standards. But beneath the surface, it's a relentless beast gnawing at our sense of self-worth. The constant fear of being exposed as a fraud, despite evidence of our capabilities, can be mentally exhausting and emotionally draining. This perpetual state of self-doubt and fear can lead to a downward spiral, causing significant distress and, if left unchecked, potentially leading to serious mental health issues. Anxiety and depression, two of the most common mental health disorders, are often linked with imposter syndrome. The constant worry of being found out can create a persistent state of anxiety. You're always on edge, expecting the worst, and this can be both physically and mentally draining. Over time, this can evolve into a chronic state of anxiety, which can impact every aspect of your life. Similarly, the chronic self-doubt and feelings of unworthiness associated with imposter syndrome can lead to depression. You may start to believe that you're genuinely not good enough, which can erode your self-esteem and plunge you into a state of helplessness and despair. Another crucial aspect of the mental health impact of imposter syndrome is burnout. The relentless pressure to perform and the fear of failure can lead to overwork and exhaustion. You're always striving, always pushing, but never feeling like you're good enough. This can lead to physical and emotional burnout, causing a significant impact on your mental health. Mental health is critical to our overall well-being. It affects how we think, feel, and act. It also helps determine how we handle stress, relate to others, and make choices. The impact of imposter syndrome on mental health can therefore have far-reaching effects on our lives. The effects of imposter syndrome on mental health can be severe, but how does this play out in real life? Meet Jane, a high-achieving professional constantly plagued by self-doubt. Jane is a shining star in her field, a beacon of success by all external standards. With a resume that boasts of top-tier education, impressive career progression, and a string of accolades, she's the epitome of a high achiever. Yet, inside, she carries a heavy burden, an internal struggle that many of us are all too familiar with: imposter syndrome. Despite her remarkable accomplishments, Jane often finds herself questioning her worth. Do I really deserve this? Am I just fooling everyone? These thoughts frequently echo in her mind, creating a tumultuous sea of doubt that threatens to pull her under. This constant questioning of her abilities, the relentless fear of being unmasked as a fraud, takes a significant toll on Jane's mental health. Her sleep is often disturbed by anxious thoughts, and she finds herself constantly on edge, anticipating the moment her facade will crumble. Her social life suffers as she pulls away from friends and loved ones, worried they too will discover her perceived inadequacies. Jane is a classic example of a high achiever battling imposter syndrome. Her accomplishments are clouded by her self-doubt, and this internal conflict creates a cycle of anxiety and depression. Instead of celebrating her achievements, she downplays them, attributing her success to luck or a simple misunderstanding. This constant undermining of her own abilities is both mentally and emotionally exhausting. But here's the thing: Jane is not alone. Countless high achievers around the world grapple with the same feelings of self-doubt and fear of exposure. It's a silent struggle, often hidden behind a veneer of success and confidence. Jane's story is a stark reminder of how imposter syndrome can affect even the most successful among us. But she's not alone. Now, let's turn our attention to John, a top student who never feels good enough. Meet John, a straight-A student, always at the top of his class. He's the one others turn to when they need help understanding concepts or preparing for tests. In fact, if you looked at John's academic record, you'd think he has it all figured out. But if you take a closer look, you'd see a different story. Inside, John is constantly battling a fear of failure. Despite his consistent high grades, he believes he's just been lucky, or that his professors are too lenient. He lives in a constant state of anxiety, convinced that any day now, he's going to be unmasked as a fraud. He spends hours poring over his assignments, obsessing over every detail. Even a minor mistake on a test can send him spiraling into self-doubt and worry. It's not about striving for excellence anymore. It's about avoiding the perceived catastrophe of imperfection. This constant need to prove himself worthy takes a toll on John. He's frequently stressed, finds it hard to sleep, and struggles to enjoy his success. His relationships suffer as he pulls away, consumed by his fear of being found out. He's driven not by a love of learning, but by the dread of not being enough. John's story is a stark reminder that imposter syndrome doesn't just affect high achievers in the workplace. It can manifest in any area of life where performance is valued, including academia. It's not about the reality of one's achievements, but the perception of self-worth, competence, and belonging. Imposter syndrome can turn even the brightest minds, like John's, into a battlefield of self-doubt and anxiety. It's a silent struggle, often hidden behind a mask of competence and confidence. John's experience shows that imposter syndrome isn't just a workplace phenomenon. It can infiltrate any area of life where performance matters. So, we've seen how imposter syndrome can affect individuals, but what causes it? Imposter syndrome does not discriminate. It can creep up on anyone, irrespective of their achievements or status. However, there are certain factors that can make us more susceptible to this psychological phenomenon. One such factor is our personality traits. For instance, perfectionists often set unrealistically high standards for themselves, and when they inevitably fail to meet these impossible expectations, they feel like frauds. Similarly, people who identify as natural geniuses feel like imposters when they cannot solve a problem or master a task on their first try. Family expectations can also play a significant role in fostering imposter syndrome. Children who grow up in households where high achievement is expected, or where their worth is equated to their success, may develop feelings of fraudulence. They may constantly feel the need to prove their worth and fear that they will disappoint their loved ones if they fail. Societal pressures, too, can contribute to imposter syndrome. In a world where success is often measured by job titles and paychecks, it's easy to feel like an imposter when you don't fit into these societal norms. Moreover, underrepresented or marginalized groups may also grapple with imposter syndrome, as they may feel they have to work twice as hard to prove their worth and competence. Imposter syndrome can also manifest in people who experience a sudden change in their life circumstances, such as a promotion or a significant achievement. The fear of not living up to new expectations can trigger feelings of being a fraud. So, while imposter syndrome can affect anyone, certain factors can make us more susceptible. It's a complex interplay of internal and external factors, and understanding these can help us recognize when we or someone we know might be grappling with this syndrome. Remember, imposter syndrome thrives in secrecy. It wants you to feel alone, to believe that you're the only one struggling with these feelings. But by understanding its causes, we can shine a light on it and start to dismantle its power. Understanding the causes of imposter syndrome is the first step towards overcoming it. Overcoming imposter syndrome isn't easy, but it's certainly possible. The journey starts with acknowledging the presence of this invisible enemy. Recognize it, call it by its name, and then we can begin to combat it. One effective strategy to overcome imposter syndrome is through cognitive behavioral therapy, or CBT. This therapy involves identifying negative thought patterns and replacing them with healthier, more positive ones. It's about learning to challenge that inner voice that says, "You're a fraud," and instead respond with, "I am capable, I am deserving." Now let's talk about self-affirmations. They might seem trivial, but their impact can be profound. These are positive statements that you say to yourself, often in front of a mirror. They are meant to counteract negative self-perceptions and help you internalize a more positive self-image. A simple affirmation like, "I am competent and knowledgeable," can slowly chip away at the imposter syndrome wall that you've built around yourself. But remember, you don't have to fight this battle alone. Seeking support from friends, family, or professionals can be incredibly beneficial. Sharing your feelings with someone you trust can help alleviate the burden. Others can provide a more objective perspective on your achievements and capabilities, countering the distorted lens through which you may be viewing yourself. It's also important to celebrate your successes, no matter how small they may seem. Every step forward is a victory. It's about progress, not perfection. Remember, it's okay to be proud of what you've achieved. Give yourself permission to feel accomplished and competent. Finally, practice self-compassion. Treat yourself with the same kindness and understanding you would extend to a friend who's struggling. When you stumble, remind yourself that it's a part of the human experience. Everyone makes mistakes and everyone has doubts. You are not alone in this journey. With the right tools and support, it is possible to break free from the shackles of imposter syndrome. It's a battle, yes, but it's one you are more than capable of winning. When imposter syndrome starts impacting your mental health, it's time to seek professional help. This statement might sound daunting, but it's a crucial step towards reclaiming your self-worth and mental wellness. Imposter syndrome isn't just a fleeting feeling of self-doubt. It's an intrusive, persistent mindset that can eat away at your mental health and overall quality of life. When it spirals out of control, it's essential to bring in the experts. Professional help comes in many forms. It could be a licensed psychologist or psychiatrist who specializes in cognitive behavioral therapy, which is particularly effective for imposter syndrome. This form of therapy helps you recognize and change thought patterns that lead to harmful feelings and behaviors. Alternatively, you could seek the guidance of a mental health counselor or a social worker. These professionals are trained to understand the intersection of societal pressures and individual mental health, providing a holistic approach to treatment. There are also support groups available. These are communities of individuals who are experiencing the same feelings of inadequacy and self-doubt. In such groups, you're not alone. You can share your experiences, learn from others, and find comfort in the fact that there are people who understand exactly what you're going through. Online resources are another option. There are numerous websites and apps that offer mental health services, including therapy sessions, self-help materials, and community forums. These platforms can be particularly helpful if you're hesitant about face-to-face consultations or if you prefer the convenience of digital platforms. Remember that it's perfectly okay to shop around for help. It's important to find a professional or a resource that you feel comfortable with and that suits your specific needs. Lastly, don't forget that reaching out for help isn't a failure. It's a brave step towards understanding and managing your imposter syndrome. It's about taking control of your thoughts and feelings, and ultimately, your life. Remember, asking for help isn't a sign of weakness, but a strength. Imposter syndrome is a formidable foe, but understanding it is our first line of defense. Our journey today has unveiled the invisible yet impactful force that's been holding many of us back. The feeling of being a fraud, the fear of being exposed, the anxiety that comes with high achievement, these are all part of the imposter syndrome package that we've unpacked. We've journeyed through the mental health impacts that this syndrome can have. It's not just about feeling like a fraud, it's about the relentless self-doubt, the constant self-criticism, the overwhelming anxiety, and the debilitating depression. We've explored the experiences of the high achiever and the perfectionist student, and through them, we've seen how imposter syndrome can manifest in different ways. Understanding imposter syndrome is of paramount importance. It's about recognizing the signs, the patterns, and the triggers. It's about acknowledging that it's okay to feel like an imposter sometimes, but it's not okay to let it rule our lives. We've also looked at ways to overcome imposter syndrome. It's about celebrating our achievements, no matter how small they may seem. It's about practicing self-compassion, embracing our imperfections, and challenging our self-defeating thoughts. It's about reaching out to others, sharing our experiences, and realizing that we're not alone in this. Seeking professional help is a crucial step in this journey. Therapists and psychologists can provide us with the tools and strategies we need to combat imposter syndrome. They can help us understand our feelings and guide us towards a healthier mindset. Imposter syndrome may be a formidable foe, but it's not an unbeatable one. The battle against it is a daily one, a continuous struggle, but it's a battle worth fighting, because at the end of the day, our mental health matters. You're not alone in this battle against imposter syndrome. Reach out, seek help, and remember, you're more capable than you think.